I'll just share one slide and chat like we're around a campfire and share a story, basically. I met the founder of Morningstar in 1982. His name's Chris Rufer. He was a young entrepreneur in Northern California. He had a vision for a high-tech, high-volume food processing company. And I was getting out of college at the time, and I joined his core team as the financial controller. And so we started a company in Northern California. It was quite successful. It got up to about $100 million in sales. We innovated in the tomato processing industry. Reasonably successful company, and yet we had challenges because we just defaulted to the traditional command and control organizational design, which was the typical pyramid structure that you see everywhere in the world. Chris was on top of the pyramid as the managing partner. We had a layer of managers, of which I was one, and we had a production manager, marketing manager, distribution manager, and et cetera. And then we had a layer of supervisors. Under the supervisors, a layer of coordinators, and then we had everyone else at the bottom of the pyramid that did the actual work. Fast forward to 1990, Chris was working on a new project. His new project was called Morningstar. The Morningstar is named for the last sentence in the book Walden Pond by Henry Thoreau, which says, "The sun is but a morning star," which was Chris's vision of perfect results. And so I joined him at Morningstar as the financial controller. And we were working out of a tiny little farmhouse on a dusty canal bank in Northern California, trying to build a factory. We had about 24 members of our core team. I was the only admin type. We had mostly mechanics, electricians, automation specialists, quality specialists, and the like. About 24 of us. One day in March of 1990, Chris walked into the farmhouse and said, "I'd like to call a meeting of colleagues here and talk about how to organize this company." And we said, "Sure, that's great." So we met with him at night in a double-wide construction trailer out on the job site. We sat around in a circle on folding chairs, and Chris handed out a document titled the Morningstar Team Principles. And so the team principles basically boil down to two. The first principle is that human beings should not use force or coercion against other human beings. If you think about that principle, it's the foundation of law everywhere in the world. So every law against assault and battery and theft and burglary and kidnapping and murder and all the rest is predicated on the principle of not using force. And the second principle was people should keep the commitments they make to each other. If you say you're going to do something, you do it. That principle also foundational to law. After all, contract law would be meaningless if parties didn't uphold their obligations to other parties. And so we discussed and debated these principles for a couple of hours, and at the end of the evening, we kind of looked around the circle at each other and said, we don't have any objections to these principles. They're self-evident principles. They make perfect sense. And so we adopted them as pretty much the entire governance of the enterprise. And when we filed out of that trailer at night, we were a self-managed enterprise in that moment. This was February of 1990. We still had a lot of work to do. We had a factory to build. We had thousands of acres, hectares of tomatoes coming up out of the ground for hundreds of miles up and down the state of California. We had to hire hundreds of people to operate the factory and drive the trucks. We had vital equipment on ocean cargo freighters out in the Atlantic Ocean waiting to go through the Panama Canal. And we had hundreds of contractors on the job site 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, constructing, fabricating, welding, pulling wire. Finally, on July 16th of 1990, we turned on the factory and we produced 90 million pounds, about 45 million kilograms of industrial tomato concentrate for the world market. And we changed the cost structure of our entire industry. pretty much overnight. We did it without a single human boss. No bosses, no managers of others, no vice presidents, no titles, zero command authority, committed teammates and colleagues working together toward a common goal. The company grew. Customers liked the product. We expanded operations up and down the supply chain toward customers in remote warehouses across North America and into Canada. We expanded operations toward the field in terms of trucking and harvesting and farming and deployment of resources. We built another factory and then a third factory. We became the largest tomato processor in the world. $1 billion company with thousands of employees. We don't call them employees, we call them colleagues, professional colleagues. We did it all without a single human boss. No bosses, no managers, no titles, zero command authority. So people became interested in how this can possibly work. It seemed very interesting, and many were skeptical. And so in 2010, Gary Hamel, Professor Hamel, came out for a visit and spent a day with us, walked around our factory, talked to colleagues in the factory, and did a little presentation. Put us on the cover of the Harvard Business Review in December of 2011. We were described as the world's most creatively managed company. So in about 2008, we had started the Morningstar Self-Management Institute. Our mission was to share the ideas, principles, and practices of organizational self-management inside Morningstar and also to others around the world. And we met a number of incredible people, great thinkers, authors, writers, practitioners, business leaders from all around the USA and all around the world. So this is the story of Morningstar, and people ask, well, how can this possibly work? I mean, this just seems fantastic. It seems like it would be impossible. And I can share a few reasons up here and dive more into it in terms of a deep dive later today. But one of the reasons it works is that we believe in managing great complexity with great simplicity. We have two organizing principles: don't use force, keep commitments. We believe these are the two most fundamental principles of human interaction. They are to human beings what gravity is to physics. If you take the principle of not using force, imagine a world where everyone in the world aligned with the principle of not using force. In that world, we wouldn't need armies or navies or police or locks on our doors. And of course, you're thinking, well, that's not reality, that's not realistic, and of course it's not. But that's not really the point. The point is the closer we approach that ideal state in an organizational context, the more space we open up for human happiness, for teamwork, for high performance, for innovation and creativity and greatness. Imagine a world where everyone always did everything they promised to do. What an amazing world that would be to live in. And keeping commitments has measurable financial and economic value. And of course, that's not reality. We understand that, but again, that's not the point. The point is the closer we get to that ideal state, the more space we open up for human happiness and harmony, teamwork, prosperity, innovation, creativity, and greatness. So managing great complexity with great simplicity. Secondly, we believe in natural leadership. Leadership is not ordained by power or position or title. Leadership is earned. The mantle of leadership is earned through trust, respect, and communication. Leaders are everywhere in Morningstar. Everyone can become a leader. The power question of leadership is, what kind of leader would you be if no one were required to listen to you? Morningstar gives people the opportunity to answer that question every day. And leadership is earned through trust, respect, and communication. Natural leadership causes leadership muscles to get stronger. If you can just exercise leadership by telling people what to do with the expectation your commands will be obeyed, is that really leadership at all? Natural leadership. Thirdly, we believe in the impeccability of commitment making and commitment keeping. Fernando Flores, a great language expert, computer expert, wrote Understanding Computers and Cognition. Some consider him the author of the Bible on artificial intelligence. He outlined the structure, the language, the life cycle of making and keeping commitments. Commitment making and keeping is impeccable. Commitments are the atomic structure of work. Commitments are how work gets done by and between individual human beings. Commitments replace bureaucracy. So we instantiate organizational self-management by managing great complexity with great simplicity through natural leadership and through the impeccability of commitment making and commitment keeping. And that's the story. Thank you.